Hi, my name is Gary Lanham, and I'm the team leader of the Gary Lanham Group at Coldwell Banker, Fort Lauderdale Beach office. And as you can see, we're doing real estate in the COVID-19 era. And we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to start talk about ways to show properties, who's buying properties today, and the best way to deal with those buyers and those sellers. We're also going to give some time to one of the listings that we had a chance to sell. It was a customer dealing with COVID in New York City, and they listed their property, and we'll bring that onto the show at the end of the show. But I think we're ready to get started. I got a little props today. We've got hand sanitizer. We have spray for the bottoms of our shoes whenever we go into a property. We have wipes. I use Clorox wipes to be able to wipe down anything that we touch to make sure things are clean and ready to be sanitized or are sanitized, so that we run no risk, or certainly we lower the risk of any type of COVID infection. So as we go through this today, I've tried to design this so that it'll be educational to buyers, sellers, and also to other realtors, because we have a great responsibility now in this COVID environment to lead our consumers, to lead our customers, to lead other realtors, to make sure we all stay safe and we all maintain a living, because we know that when you sell a house, you add 2 jobs to the economy, and that's very important right now. So let's get started. I'm so happy to be here with Chitachi. She is in the background, she's in the studio, and I'm in a separate studio. And we're using a product which allows us to basically be remote and still communicate very well with each other and also with you. So Chitachi, let's start with the first slide. So as we get started with that first slide, I'm just going to take my mask off, and I'm going to get a little bit more relaxed. But basically, we know that real estate today may be changed forever in the face of COVID-19. Now, basically, we know that this is a SARS virus that was discovered in 2019, and the SARS virus is called Corona COVID. So a few months ago, most of us would have had no idea what a coronavirus actually was, what COVID stood for, or the number 19. The entire world now, however, has been thrust into a new normal, and with agents, that's no exception. There are no exceptions as far as how we can protect ourselves, how we need to protect our customers, and we stay going forward that we can certainly do a better job. And in fact, as I've talked with some of my realtors, we may never go back to the old model again, because we've invented, we've created, we've been innovative, we know how to show, we know how to keep moving forward, we know how to move inventory. Next slide, please. So we know that we moved our real estate business from the big brokerage houses. I'm with Coldwell Banker, and basically we have office space there. I have office space for my team. And now all of my team members have moved their real estate business either to their bedroom, their guest room, their living room, into their dining room, or any kind of nook and cranny that they can call an office. In fact, today we actually had our first Zoom meeting. We had the agents on my team, along with my videographer, as long as a new agent that we're training for our team, to make sure that we communicate on the same page. And there was nothing better than, number one, seeing my team members, seeing them interact with each other, seeing them willing to cooperate with each other so that we can tap into each of the resources my team has to bring to offer. Because my team is very rich and it's very deep. I've got Eileen Mulkey. She's been in real estate for 30 some years, and she's also a forensic appraiser. I've got Juan Cabrera and also Roxana Camber, both Spanish speaking agents. So they help us deal with the bilingual clientele. A lot of customers from Europe, a lot of customers from South America. We also have Hope Jackson, who deals with the high-rise market and the luxury high-end market. And then we have our millennial, we have Chandler Williams, who's been a bright star in our arsenal. He has friends. He's a millennial. He's 21 years old. He knows how to work all the technology. He teaches us how to work the technology so that we can maintain a standard approach and never moving the technology forward. And then we have a new addition. We're training right now a gentleman named Joel Garcia, and we're so happy to have him. And if he's watching right now, I'm going to ask him to send us his video so maybe we can introduce him on live in just a moment. In fact, he just texted me, and I'm going to text him back. Please join. Okay, next slide, please. So as we go through the process of living in a different world, living in a different environment, the million-dollar question becomes, is this a good time to buy or sell, or should I wait? So I can tell you that personally in March, we were scheduled to close about $3.75 million worth of deals. The stock market took a dump of about 30%. And we closed about $1.75 million worth of deals because at that time we were dealing with a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of uncertainty. But since that time, we're now seeing buyers resurge into the marketplace. We're now seeing sellers contact us because guess what? As an essential business, real estate is based on life events. So what are life events? Life events include deaths, but they also include births. Whenever there's a newborn or a family starts to grow, the need for more space is necessary. And then we also know that perhaps because of all this quarantine activity, that my friend Sheena Benjamin Wise, who's a family law attorney, will be busier than ever helping people get divorces or separated with legal separations, which may change their real estate needs again. So again, life events that move people, move society, and keep Americans employed. Again, we talked about selling houses and how that adds jobs in a very fragile economy, and we want to be a part of that action. Next slide, please. We certainly have some new rules of the road, but here's something we've noticed at the Gary Lanham Group, that the buyers and sellers who are in the market today are more serious than ever. Well, we may have fewer of them, but the ones that are out there are making decisions. So what this has done basically is that the buyers who are present in the market today are not your normal tire kickers. They aren't the people that are searching the internet, looking for properties, earmarking the properties, and going on a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday drive to different open houses to see and review the properties and to determine how that property compares to their own home. Because that's what people do. We compare in our own neighborhoods similar houses because we know that real estate is a process of substitution. So if this house was listed, for example, at $500,000 and it looks like my house, which is a 3-2 with a pool home and an upgraded kitchen, then maybe I could sell my house at a similar dollar amount. Next slide, please. We also know that sellers, the market has just gotten kinder. People are nicer to each other. You know, you only have to look in your neighborhood on a Sunday afternoon and go out for a walk or a bike ride or walk your dog or somehow get outside your four walls to see that your neighbors are friendlier. That's the same thing that's happening in the market. Sellers are willing to negotiate. Buyers are willing to bring their part to the table, and it makes for a nice blend. It's kind of like a throwback, just like the bicycle ride I take every day or walking my neighborhood. It's kind of a throwback to when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, where basically people looked out for one another. And we're seeing that more and more now. And that translates into a nice script, a nice experience in the real estate market because people are buying and selling. Next slide, please. And why not be nicer? You know, it's stressful enough to be worried, you know, am I positive? Am I not positive? Do I have antibodies? Do I not have antibodies? Being nice allows us to put our best foot forward. And if there's one thing this virus and this quarantine has certainly taught us is how to be more relatable, how to be nicer to our friends, our customers, our family members, and it pays dividends. Because what I've seen with my experience is that I'm closer to my family, I'm closer to my friends, I'm closer to my neighbors than I've ever been before. For a long time down here, we've had people moving from other areas that never knew the names of their neighbors. They may have lived in New York or some other big city where they never knew the people that lived on their floor. That translated to our neighborhoods down here. Now, that's dissipating and going away because we know in this kind of pandemic situation, we need each other. We need to rely on each other, and we want to rely on each other. I want to rely on you, and I want you to trust me that I'll help you if you ever need something. Next slide. If you're a buyer, you have less buyers that you're competing with. So not everybody is going to the open houses. Not everybody is able to review the houses online. But we do see buyers looking at houses through a tool called virtual showings or online showings, where basically the listing agent has put together a series of video, a series of photography, and can give a guided tour. We do that very well on my team. We use Facebook Live. And if you haven't seen Juan or Eileen do a tour yet, or Hope do a tour yet, please stay tuned, because that's how we demonstrate our properties and take the buyers to the first step. Now, if the buyer sees the property and they want to go in and take a closer look, we allow that. But we go back to basic real estate, basic blocking and tackling. You like the property, the next thing is to schedule an appointment to see the property, but only after you provide me with proof of funds and an approval letter from the bank. Now, if certain sellers may be willing to allow a pre-approval buyer into their homes, we are recommending to our sellers that, especially in our higher price points, we don't want looky-loos in the house. We want to make sure that the buyers that are coming through actually have the financial wherewithal to actually purchase the house. And after all, if the seller is still living in the house, we still want to reduce the risk and make sure that we can minimize any transmission risk of the COVID-19 virus. Next slide, please. So when we talk about buyers, there are a couple of things that were happening in our market before COVID occurred. If you look at the top of this slide, and that 46%, that is millennials, and that percentage of millennials are actually renting homes. The 64.3%, those are homeowners. And the reasons that there aren't more homeowners is you look at number one, which is lagging wages. Well, not only do we have lagging wages right now, we have many people who have been cut back 30%, 25% on their salaries, or they're working fewer hours. We also know that the market is very competitive, and that people have to get in and get the deal right away, especially if it's priced correctly, because we simply have a limited supply. And as you go down in price point, down to the 350 to 300 and the 250 to 350 range, in fact, we basically have very few starter homes. So with fewer starter homes, we need to look for inventory. We need to pursue the sellers because the sellers have gotten a little bit nervous. But still, we have life events. Part of our strategy is to work with these sellers so that they understand that we can keep them safe and keep them protected when we bring buyers through. Now, never before have the sellers had to do so much pre-planning, because many of these homes that go on the market go into contract just like that. So if it's priced right, the seller's ready, willing, and able, the buyers step up, it gets into contract, and then the seller becomes the buyer on the other side. And of course, if you're dealing with Coldwell Banker, you know we can refer you to any agent all over the country and most places in the world. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to be able to do the 1-2 step using Coldwell Banker so that we can maintain all your housing needs. Next slide, please. We also see buyers coming through, especially those first-time home buyers or those buyers up to the $350,000, $400,000 mark, who put in contracts, and all of a sudden, you know, there's so many buyers out there that basically they get outmaneuvered, maybe by $1,000 on the contract, or a less restrictive inspection period, or a better closing date. So we know since now we have fewer buyers, if you've lost out on a deal, come back to the table. Get out there, start looking for homes so that we can get you placed in the right home for you and your family, and don't miss out again on a competitive situation. Next slide, please. So I believe the smartest home buyers are searching for homes now. Now, basically, if they're searching for homes now, we could say that now is the time to get your deal of a lifetime, because the motivated sellers know that they have to sell a property. Oftentimes, this might be due to an estate sale. This might be due to a second home opportunity, and they don't know when they'll get out of New York again to come down here, or some other area that's heavily affected by COVID-19. But we know that with those kind of market compression data, that this is the time for buyers to strike the best deal. Next slide, please. So this is just representing that a smooth transaction. Money is exchanged for the property, and hopefully that property is at the best price. As a buyer's agent, we are required to try to work on the behalf of the buyer to get the very best deal they can for the buyer. If you're a listing agent, even under COVID-19 conditions, we are responsible to the seller. We are responsible to getting the most money to the seller so that they can walk away from the table feeling like we've done our job well for them, and simply that we have not taken a contract. So many agents have learned how to show homes in COVID-19. Many agents know how to put the mask on, use the rubber gloves, use the hand sanitizers, all the props I have here, but many agents still don't have the experience. We go back to our original statistics and we know that 87% of all realtors drop out in the first 5 years. So if you're dealing with real estate now, I encourage you to use an experienced agent, someone that has more than 5 years experience, someone that can produce the buyer sales or listing sales that they've accomplished for you, because there's nothing worse than getting you on the hook for something and the agent can't perform for you. Now, the great thing about Coldwell Banker agents is that we are so trained and can constantly train. In fact, on a weekly basis, we still meet with their leadership, who brings us up to date as far as what kind of changes have occurred because of COVID, what are some best showing practices, what are some best buying practices to use with our customers. Next slide, please. So a lot of this activity that we're doing with our buyers and with our sellers are using a product called Zoom. Now, you might also use something called Teams, which is a Microsoft product. We have a product that Tachi and I are using now, which is not Zoom or Teams, but essentially a product that's going to allow you to be in a meeting, look your best, be enthusiastic, show that you love what you're doing. Encourage your people to come to the meeting early so that they can socialize with each other before there's a meeting agenda. Today, for example, we scheduled our Zoom meeting at an off time. We did it at 10:15, and we did it in 10:15 increments, allowing the room to be open at 10, so that from 10 until 10:15, my agents could socialize with each other. They could deal with the frustrations, the angst they experience, whether it's staying at home, going to Publix, or trying to find a way to not be lonely, find a way to have exercise, or find a way to socialize. So it's important to understand the guidelines. I'm going to take you back to those guidelines, if you will, Chitachi, so we can go over a few more. Now, one of the things that when you're doing a Zoom-like meeting, you got to test it beforehand. So do it with somebody, a friend of yours, or do it with your colleague, because you want to make sure that when you go on, your speakers work, your microphone's working, and your webcam is working. Now, when you set up the meeting, which is what we do ahead of time, we basically provide security measures, because you've probably heard the stories now about hijacking a meeting. People come into a meeting that's not password protected, or they don't have an invitation to enter the meeting, and all of a sudden pornography starts showing up on the screen. The way Zoom works, for example, is that whenever noise occurs, the camera is directed to the noise. So it's very, very important to set up your privacy settings to make sure that you're protected from any outside influences who want to negatively impact your business. Let's go back to that Zoom slide again. So another thing I like to do is when we're in a meeting, and today I mentioned it to my agents, that reverberation can occur when everybody has their microphone on. And reverberation might be hearing somebody else's sound vibrate. It might be an example of listening to somebody else's cell phone go off, or the ding of their phone or their computer when an email comes in. I encourage everyone who's in the meeting who's not speaking to mute themselves. That avoids any kind of unnecessary feedback and allows each speaker their turn to speak. And in Zoom, for example, you can there's a raise your hand function, and the moderator can go to that person, or you can turn the moderator can actually turn their mute button off to allow them to go on. So just some practical applications. This is the way we do real estate and most business these days. We're going to be doing virtually, and not necessarily face-to-face all the time. Next slide, please. So I'm going to take you through a situation that it was a referral situation that we had, and I'm going to share with you kind of what happened with this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the way we saw the house initially. I believe I've got a video queued up as far as how we introduced ourselves to the seller who was in COVID affected New York, and then how we addressed the problems of the house, and then how we marketed the house, and then how we essentially took it to market with competitive offers, and then went for highest and last bid. So hang on one second. I'm going to send Chitachi video. So, all right, so we got into the house, and basically what happened with this house is there were a lot of things that hadn't been attended to. So let me just see if I've got that video real quick. And I'm going to shoot it off to Chitachi. This is the wonderful thing about virtual meetings, is that I can actually get something to her instantaneously, and with a little bit of rework on her side, we can actually get this on the screen. So here it comes to Chitachi, and I'm sending it to her phone. And there we have it. And so at this point, Chitachi, you should have the video. Let's go ahead and take a look at those before the sale pictures again. The last one we saw was on a electric box. We can start there again if you don't mind. So when I did a review of the house, and what you should clearly see here is that this is a Federal Pacific Electric Company box. Now, a Federal Pacific box is basically been deemed as unsafe. In particular, this box has been deemed unsafe. So the sellers knew, based on our recommendation, that this could be a negotiating point, and that we would need to take care of this problem so that we basically could get the sale transacted. So next slide, please. Also on examination of the house, we took a visual inspection of the outside of the house. And as you can see, the fascia board here looks like it's got a pretty bad case of the termites. Underneath the fascia, I want you to also notice this lattice work. That lattice work is basically covering up what had been a carport. And as we go through the slides, you'll see how we made some changes to make the house a little bit better. Next slide, please. And the next slide is going to give us more indication of termite damage. And here we have underneath the fascia and the roof line some problems. And basically, it looks like we have a couple of problems. We not only have some termite problems, but we've also perhaps had a water leak in the house. So these are before pictures as far as what we did and how we do things. Now this house is located in North Andrews Terrace. So I looked at the demographics, and basically what I looked at was that the demographics are pretty split, and there's a large concentration of Hispanic homeowners in this neighborhood. So basically, I knew that this house was going to be co-listed with Juan Cabrera on my team. Number one, he speaks Spanish. He can communicate with the Spanish buyers, and he has a really wonderful way of doing real estate because he pays attention to detail. If we have his video queued up, this would be the time to play it. So basically what I did, I may end up just sending you the link. Let me send it real quickly. I'm going to go to his LinkedIn page, or excuse me, Instagram page. And again, this is all being done virtually, so you can see how things are going. And he is Soy again. And I'm going to send the link to StreamYard. And I'm not sure if Chitachi can insert that link so that this will play. And I hope you can do that, because I want you to understand the capabilities of what it's like dealing in a multilingual environment and having the power of multilingual agents so that we can converse and communicate effectively, especially with the Latino buyer. So while we wait for that, let's go ahead and proceed to the next slide, please. Okay, so basically, what I've tried to do, we're not able to get that video stream up, but I want to give you the Instagram note. If in your comment sections, let's see, I'm going to put it in the comment sections. Let's see here. Okay, so the comment section for Juan, he's Soy again. Soyo, S-O-Y-O, again, A-G-A-I-N. And I'm going to just play the video and see if you can hear him.
Hola a todo el mundo. Hoy comienzo a hacer una serie de videos destinados a la gente que habla español para informarles sobre el mercado de real estate. Hoy es 9 de abril del 2020 y para los que no me conocen, mi nombre es Juan Cabrera. Yo pertenezco al grupo de Gary Lanham Team, que es uno de los top 25 equipos o grupos de producción dentro del sureste de la Florida en Coldwell Banker. El mercado en verdad ha estado bastante movido y hubo muchos cambios en lo que ha pasado en las últimas semanas. Voy a hacer una serie de videos para informarles y dejarles saber información que es pertinente y que los puede ayudar a tomar decisiones si están en este momento enfrentando alguna duda sobre cómo moverse en el real estate.
All right, so that was Juan. Hope you were able to hear that okay. If somebody could give me some feedback on that, that would be great. Just wanted to make sure you had a chance. So I called in Juan also because he has a history of flipping houses. So not only can he communicate with the Hispanic community, but he knows contractors who can get work done quickly, inexpensively, and we have a good turnaround and with permits if necessary on any work that we did. So we got the call for the listing from the New York seller. Within 35 days, Juan had enlisted a painter a roof cleaner because we had all kinds of black olive trees giving us debris and soot on the roof. We had interior and exterior painting. We had an electrician in who changed out the Federal Pacific box and brought it up to date. The outside box was fine. We took the lattice work away from the house and we reinstated the original carport. And of course, we painted the house white, making sure that everything was nice and bright and fresh. And we did the same thing with the interior of the house because we wanted the house and the space to look a lot bigger because we know that white will open up the space. So what happened with this house? So we had it on the market 5 days. We ended up with 6 offers, most of them cash, and some were financed. Some were financed with construction loans because we disclose, as we always do, the truth about the house. And here's what we knew about the house. We found out the problem with the electric box and we remedied that. We found out also a problem when we cleaned the roof, that maybe the roof needed to be replaced. So we disclosed that to every buyer coming through. Now, the sellers were selling it as an estate sale. They really had no knowledge of the condition of the house, but they relied on us to be fair and to treat the buyers with respect and integrity. So with each of the buyers, we disclosed what we knew about the house. And with the final buyer, we're in contract now, it was a guy that it was a realtor I've done business with. I haven't done a deal with him probably in about 10 years, but I've done a couple of deals back a decade ago. And my experience with him was that he was fair, he was honest, and he knew how to get a deal closed. So representing the buyer, I felt like we had a good shot with him. We gave him the notice on the roof. He actually took 2 roofing guys in there to get estimates, and basically we were selling the house as is, where is, and he immediately tried to he tried to shake us down. Basically, he tried to shake us down to a lower price, and not only did they inspect the roof, they did a little bit of inspection here, there, and everywhere, and came up with a laundry list that simply we didn't care about because we priced the house to sell it. We priced it knowing the condition of the house. The seller was on board. So when we presented the request for a price reduction to the seller, we gave him a couple of options. One option might be, for example, that you would meet the buyer halfway and give them half of their request, depending on the urgency, the need to get the estate settled, and how quickly you wanted to get the cash. However, while we gave the seller that option, we recommended to the seller that he not choose that option, that instead we should initiate a cancellation and release of the contract. And I had signatures on that release done right away. And our retort to the buyer's request was we sent that cancellation notice. So a day goes by, I don't have the notice canceled by the buyer. My phone rings, it's the buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent says that he was wondering about the verdict on his request for like $10,000. Now, one could be suspicious that maybe he chose not to look at his email, or that he looked at his email and he still wanted to be a little naive. But I explained the circumstances of the pricing, how we priced the house, and simply that we had sent him that cancellation. We went through some of the work that we had done on the house to make it more attractive. And at the end of the conversation, which was about 20 minutes, he said, let's proceed to closing. So realtors, when you have a listing and you get the shakedown from the buyers, do not give in. We work for the seller. We work for the seller to get the highest and most amount of money as quickly as possible in the time frame allotted. So do not roll over because you need a paycheck because the seller needs a higher gain. I cannot be more I can't stress that enough. I can't emphasize that enough. We work for the seller. Our job is to make sure the seller gets the most amount of money. Now, buyer's agents, it's probably not a bad tactic to take, you know, if you can support it by data. But if you can't support it by data, if you're dealing with a listing agent who understands the numbers, understands the MLS data for that neighborhood, you're probably singing up the wrong tree. So I wanted to educate you guys today a little bit about what it's like to do business in the COVID environment. At the early part of this presentation, we talked about the precautions. I want to end it with kind of what you can expect as a buyer or seller going forward. As a buyer or seller going forward, you should expect to receive from your realtor the following types of questions. Do you or anybody in your family have COVID-19? Have you been exposed to COVID-19? Have you traveled to a country or city that has COVID-19 in the past 30 days? Basically, what we're trying to get from the buyer and also from the seller for that matter is a hold harmless agreement that essentially allows us to feel safe personally for our corporation and also for our buyers and sellers to review any kind of property. So showing houses in COVID-19 takes some expertise, but more than anything, it takes experience and it takes a team of realtors who know how to negotiate, stand tall, and not waver on our positions. If you need help with how to show your listings or how to deal with your buyers, I'm always here to help other realtors and buyers and sellers. If you need help in selling or buying a property, please give me a call. My name is Gary Lanham. I'm the team leader of the Gary Lanham Group at Coldwell Banker, Fort Lauderdale Beach office. I can be reached at 954-695-6518. With that, thank you for being with me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to help you. If we can help you in any way, reach out to us. We have bicycles, we can deliver groceries, and we can deliver kindness. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.